Imagine this. You're on top of the world, a global icon loved by billions, yet you still face the harsh realities of racism. That's exactly what Michael Jackson experienced. In this video, we're going to explore the shocking instances where Michael, despite his exceptional talent and fame, was targeted simply because of the color of his skin. Get ready to uncover the truth behind the heartbreaking moments when Michael Jackson, the king of pop, became a victim of racism. Michael lived in a violent environment at home. His father, Joseph, was extremely strict and aggressive, especially towards Michael because he was his golden boy. It is important that we recognize that Joseph had that abusive mentality common in men of preparing their children for the discrimination of the world. With this mentality, many parents commit extreme abuse towards their children. Joseph humiliated Michael. He made fun of his appearance, made fun of his nose, his pimples, his hair, everything, just like with the other children. Proof that this behavior was common in little Michael's house is Janet's speech when she says that Michael himself and his brother called her pig because of her weight when they were children. This behavior in the Jackson household was completely normal. When the brothers grew up, they became aware that in fact it was all racism and discrimination. In 1978, Michael walked into an antique store. Bill Bray, his friend and bodyguard, was with him as always, but he went to the bathroom. When he left the bathroom, he couldn't find Michael anywhere and ended up finding him in a back room tied up. It turns out that the store's owner had ties to the Ku Klux Klan, a racist and anti-Semitic group. This is an example of how Michael suffered racism firsthand. At the time, the Ku Klux Klan brutally murdered black people, activists, and Jews. Thanks to Bill Bray, Michael suffered no harm. Years later, in his video Black or White, Michael makes an aggressive attack on this organization openly. When he released Off the Wall in 1979, the album's commercial and critical success was such that the album quickly became the best-selling album by a black artist. It was expected that Off the Wall would be nominated in several categories at the 1980 Grammy Awards. The reality was the opposite. Off the Wall received 2 nominations, only in categories called Urban, and won only 1 award. Michael felt ignored even by his colleagues. I was disappointed, so I said to myself, wait until the next one. They can't ignore the next album. In a letter written in his own hand, Michael declared, "White people have always been on the pages of history, placing them above black people and calling them noble, like Elvis being the king of rock, Springsteen being the boss, and the Beatles being the best. Yes, these guys were good, but they weren't better singers or dancers than black people. The difference is that white people control the press, the media, and can make the people believe whatever they want. I will change that now with power of my songs and dance. I'm not prejudiced. It's just time for the first black king." We all know the rest of the story. Michael left with 8 Grammys in hand in 1984 for his album Thriller, which quickly became the biggest selling album of all time. Still in 1980, the success of the album Off the Wall with the public and the impressive numbers still did not make him accepted, so to speak, by the entertainment industry, which made him increasingly frustrated. So he asked his publicist, Norman Winter, to get him a cover in Rolling Stone magazine. The response from Jen Wenner, the editor, disappointed him even more. "We would really like to do a big story with Michael Jackson, but I don't think it would be cover story." His furious response to the statement was, "I've been told repeatedly that black people on magazine cover don't sell copies. Just wait. Some days these magazines will beg me for an interview. Maybe I'll give them one." Until then, MTV had never aired videos by African-American artists, remaining focused only mainly on the music of white artists such as The Clash, Blondie, Genesis, Duran Duran, Peter Gabriel, and Billy Idol. Michael Jackson insisted on premiering Billie Jean's video on MTV. At his request, the then president of Epic Records, Walter Yetnikoff, contacted the broadcaster, who soon refused because it was a video by black artist. Michael insisted with Yetnikoff until he threatened the network that they would no longer allow them to broadcast music video from any artist on his label if they didn't broadcast Michael's. The record company feared losing the rights to broadcast clips from artists such as Cyndi Lauper, Billy Joel, Culture Club, and Wham, and gave in to Walter's threat. Coincidentally or not, the broadcaster was on the verge of bankruptcy and managed to save itself after the rating success of Michael Jackson's music videos. With this, Michael opened doors for African-American artists like Whitney Houston, Prince, Janet Jackson, and everyone else to this day and forever. In 1988, Michael had recently released his iconic album, Bad. The album was a sales and critical success, becoming for a period the second best-selling album in the world behind only its predecessor, Thriller. After Michael's historic scene with his 8 Grammys in 1984, everyone expected this to happen again in 1988. Expectations were disappointed. At the same time, Michael was being the victim of many lies due to the lightening of his skin tone caused by vitiligo, a disease that destroys skin pigmentation and which was confirmed by Michael and the singer's autopsy after his death. Michael was nominated for 4 categories and didn't win any. Michael did not hide his face of disappointment at the event that is now considered one of the biggest injustices at the Grammys. Minute before, Michael had given one of the best performances in the history of the Grammys, causing everyone to give me standing ovation. According to Michael himself, in agreement with large part of the public and critics, they judge his skin color, his appearance, and not his art. The famous tabloids, smaller newspapers, were the main promoters of the racism and the bestialization of Michael Jackson. If to this day we see distorted images and montages of Michael Jackson in a strange way, much of the blame lies with these famous small newspapers. One of the many nicknames given to Michael Jackson was Wacko Jacko. Jacko was a nickname given to Monkey since the 19th century based on the story of Jacko Macaco. Wacko in Portuguese translates as crazy. In other words, they gave Michael Jackson the nickname Crazy Monkey, opening up the perverse racism against Jackson. In an interview with journalist Barbara Walters in 1997, Michael declared,
"This you should not do. You should not say he's an animal. Should not say he's Jacko. I'm not a Jacko. I'm Jackson." Wacko Jacko. Where'd that come from? Some English tabloid. I have a heart and I have feelings. I feel that when you do that to me. It's not nice. Don't do it. I'm not a wacko.
When Michael decided to buy Llama, he asked Jermaine to accompany him to the sales location. Once there, they saw 4 llamas in the background. When they entered, they were completely ignored by a man who didn't even look at them, but then said, "We're not hiring." Michael replied, "We're not looking for a job, we're here to buy llama." The man replied, "We don't have llamas," as if to say, "You don't have the money to pay." That's when Jermaine said they saw the 4 llamas in a background and the man bombarded Jacksons with questions like, "Do you know how much they cost? Do you have resources to have a llama? What do you do to able to buy a llama? Is he going to stay? Have you thought about that?" Michael explained to him that everything was organized to welcome the llama to his home in his huge backyard. The man asked for their ID and got scared. "Are you those guys from the Jacksons?" After saying that, the man who showed an angry face started to get happy and explain himself by saying that he couldn't just sell to anyone. Then Michael questioned, "So you're happy to accept me, because now you know who I am?" Jermaine says that the biggest conception people had about Michael Jackson was that his legendary shyness made him shy, but he was a man of principle, especially when his roots as a proud black man were concerned, and he was not afraid to talk about it when angry. Michael took back his ID and walked out saying, "You're an idiot and we no longer want to spend our money here." In 1983, before closing the deal with Pepsi, the Jackson brothers were interested in signing a contract with Coca-Cola. The proposal was passed on to the company, which was interested, but was afraid of casting black boys to star in its commercials. According to Jay Coleman, manager of the record company to which the Jacksons belonged, Coca-Cola claimed that this would be a leap of faith that they were not willing to make. Coca-Cola resisted and offered $1 million just to the Jacksons. The offer was rejected. Considering the profits the company would make, $1 million was very little. It would be unfair. The Jacksons then decided to make a $5 million deal with Pepsi. The result of this was, Coca-Cola replaced the Jacksons with the band Rolling Stones and offered much more than it had offered to the brothers. However, the Jacksons' agreement with Pepsi made the brand grow even more, reaching revenues of $7 billion in 1984. Coca-Cola, on the other hand, saw its sales decrease, losing its position as the best-selling drink to its completion. This is a strong example of when black people attack their peers. Racism within the black community itself continues to be racism. In 1984, at the last show of the Victory Tour, Michael announced that it would be his last show with the brothers. Michael was willing to pursue his career completely independent of his family. Victory Tour promoter Don King was angry after the show, as he had hoped to take the tour overseas. Don stated, "There is no way Michael Jackson could be as big as he is with his brothers and treat his family the way he did. Michael has to realize he's a nigga. No matter how much he knows how to dance and sing, he is one of the world's megastars, but he will still be a nigga." Nigga is a derogatory American slang term to refer to black people, which is highly offensive and emerged in the 18th century, derived from the word Negro in Spanish and Portuguese. Michael was angry by this statement and asked his lawyer John Branca to file a lawsuit against Don King. "That guy has been bothering me since day one," Michael said to John Branca. Branca convinced Michael to leave it alone so as not to give the media an opportunity to make money with biased reports about the case. The moment Michael Jackson started breaking records, he broke Elvis Presley's record. He broke the Beatles' records. The moments Michael had the best-selling album in the history according to the Guinness Book, overnight they called him a freak. They called him a homosexual. They called him a child molester. They said he bleached his skin. They tried everything to turn the public against Michael Jackson. It's a big conspiracy, you need to know that. He knew his race. He looked in the mirror. He was proud of being Black American.